And now I will recognize the ranking member of that subcommittee, Senator Lummis from Wyoming.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Chairman Carper. He'll be here, I believe, in the flesh soon. And Ranking Member Capito, so nice to be with you this morning. Thanks for convening this hearing. We welcome our witnesses. Thanks for taking the time to share your views on SRF and water infrastructure with us this morning. And I'm so pleased to be working with Senator Duckworth. We served together in the House, enjoyed each other's company then. I'm sure we will now. The Lummis family during the century of the 1800s were at Quincy, Illinois. That was where the family homestead was. And at Quincy, Illinois, they had a triage hospital during the Civil War. They would bring the wounded up the river or down the river, in whichever case it was, to Quincy. And that was where the family ranch was. We ended up moving farther west later on. But it's nice to be with you again. So pleased to be working with you. I'm confident that this will be the continuation of a productive relationship in Congress as we work together on the important items found in our subcommittee jurisdiction, including topics of drinking water and wastewater infrastructure before us today. Proper oversight of the federal government and its myriad of programs is one of the fundamental duties of Congress, so I'm hopeful this will be just the first of many oversight hearings in our committee. Access to clean and safe drinking water, especially during these challenging times, is critical to both public health and restoring our economy. The primary mechanism for financing water infrastructure is from state and local sources, including the collection of user fees, but funding has not kept pace with the growing need to address an aging system. Only 20% of very large utilities and 10% of small utilities report that they will be able to provide full cost service in 5 years. The EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund and Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, or SRFs, complement these funding efforts and do it in a very responsible way. When I was state treasurer, I served on the State Loan and Investment Board. We administered the state revolving funds. And so in the states, they have tremendous oversight and the capability of then leveraging further projects, which I think is the ideal way for the federal government to distribute funding. Most of our nation's drinking water and wastewater utilities are small. Over 90% of the country's roughly 50,000 community water systems serve populations fewer than 10,000 people. Roughly 80% of America's 17,000 wastewater utilities serve populations fewer than 10,000 people. Rural and small communities, like many found in my state of Wyoming, have greater difficulty affording public wastewater service due to low population density and lack of economies of scale. Rural communities also have lower average median household incomes and often have higher rates of poverty, only compounding the challenge. It follows, then, that rural water and wastewater services have a more difficult time complying with Clean Water Act and Safe Drinking Water Act regulations and permits. You've mentioned, Senator Duckworth, that this is an issue in your state of Illinois as well. Large communities often have extensive teams of experts, including highly trained operators, engineers, and chemists, while smaller communities face the regulatory burdens of the same complex systems, albeit smaller in scale. They often have only one operator doing multiple jobs. This is very typical in my state. These factors reinforce the need for increased flexibility and relief for these communities. This past week, Wyoming faced some challenging weather. I missed 2 days here because I couldn't make it back. I couldn't even get to my house on the ranch in Cheyenne. Had to stay in town, dig out just to get to the streets. We had between 31 and 55 inches of snow, and it was tremendous. Mark Pepper, the executive director of the Wyoming Association of Rural Water Systems, shared with my office some of the work he and his team had to do to make sure water continued to flow to our residents during this storm. One of his recent emails to one of my staffers reads as follows. Again, sorry for the delay. We've been working on a system that had a tank mixer, which circulates water to prevent ice or freeze buildup, experience a power failure on a 300,000-gallon tank on a 100-foot pedestal. I am finally starting to unthaw. We had to take the tank offline and switch to using pumps to supply water to residents. Fortunately, no water quality or quantity issues or EPA Safe Drinking Water Act actions. But the tank damage is such that it will be a few days to make repairs sufficient to come back online and fix it permanently. We had to drain the tank by breaking through the ice shield, use a submersible heat pump to get the flow going, and then get it drained to inspect the damage. Did all this while 100 feet off the ground, harnessed and tethered to the tank. By the way, he wanted everybody to know that he did it in a completely OSHA-compliant way. So this is just one small example of the work rural water systems are doing in challenging conditions. I appreciate the work that Mark and others do, particularly in our small and rural communities, to keep our water supply secure. I'm anxious to learn from our witnesses how these EPA water programs can be improved to make the job of our providers and servicers even easier. So welcome back in the flesh, Mr. Chairman, and we appreciated your remarks while you were still on the train. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.